Do-hyun wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the control panel of his cargo ship. The lights blinked in their usual pattern, showing everything was normal. His ship, the Morning Star, was old and slow, but it had carried him safely through space for 5 years. He was hauling medical supplies to a station near the border, a simple job that would pay enough to keep him flying for another month. The silence of deep space surrounded him like a blanket. Most pilots found it lonely. Do-hyun found it peaceful. No bosses telling him what to do. No crowds pushing past him. Just him, his ship, and the endless stars. A beeping sound broke his peace. Do-hyun frowned and checked his scanner. There was a distress signal coming from somewhere nearby. He pulled up the coordinates and felt his stomach drop. The signal was coming from a ship that had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and it wasn't alone. 3 other ships surrounded it, their weapons hot. Pirates. Do-hyun's finger hovered over the controls. The smart thing to do was ignore it. Pirates didn't take prisoners, and a cargo hauler like him would be an easy target if they noticed him. He started to turn his ship away, then stopped. The ship under attack had special markings on its hull. He enhanced the image and his breath caught. The Crimson Seal. The Valoran Empire's royal transport. This is not my problem, Do-hyun muttered to himself. The Valorans were powerful, proud, and they hated outsiders. Humans especially. He had heard stories about human traders being executed just for looking at Valoran nobles the wrong way. Getting involved with their business would be suicide. The distress signal beeped again. Do-hyun watched his screen as the pirate ships hammered the transport with energy weapons. The transport's shields flickered and failed. In minutes, maybe seconds, the pirates would breach the hull. Everyone inside would die. Damn it, Do-hyun said and pushed his throttle forward. His ship lurched toward the battle. It wasn't fast, but it had one advantage. Nobody expected a cargo hauler to charge into a fight. Do-hyun's hands flew over the controls, powering up his ship's small defense guns. They were meant for shooting space debris, not warships, but they would have to do. He came in at an angle the pirates wouldn't expect. Military ships followed patterns, predictable attack formations that any trained pilot would recognize. Do-hyun didn't follow those patterns because he had never been trained. He flew like a civilian, which meant he flew crazy. His first shots hit one pirate ship's engine. The ship didn't explode, but it started spinning out of control. The other 2 pirates turned toward him, confused. Do-hyun didn't give them time to think. He fired his cargo bay doors open and released a dozen empty storage containers. They scattered in all directions. The pirates tried to track him through the cloud of floating metal. Their sensors couldn't lock on. Do-hyun used the confusion to circle around and fire at the second pirate ship. His shots were wild, hitting the ship's side armor. It didn't do much damage, but it made them angry. Both pirate ships forgot about the transport and came after him. Do-hyun's heart hammered in his chest. This was the part of the plan where he usually had more ideas. He twisted his ship into a steep dive, trying to use the transport as cover. The pirates followed, firing streams of energy that lit up the darkness around him. One shot clipped his rear shields and alarm started screaming. Come on, Do-hyun whispered, checking his scanner. The transport was powering up its engines. Good. They had used the time he bought them to restore emergency power. Now they could run. Except Do-hyun couldn't. His ship was too slow and the pirates were too close. Another shot hit him. His shields collapsed completely. The hull groaned as energy weapons tore through metal. Do-hyun felt heat wash through the cabin as systems started failing. His oxygen gauge dropped. Life support was dying. Through his viewport, he saw the transport jump to faster-than-light speed. It vanished in a flash of light, escaping to safety. You're welcome, Do-hyun coughed as smoke filled his cabin. The pirate ships moved in for the kill. Do-hyun reached for the emergency beacon, knowing it wouldn't help. He was too far from any friendly station. He would be dead before anyone arrived. Then space itself seemed to tear open. 3 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light right on top of the battle. Do-hyun recognized their design. Valoran Imperial Navy. The cavalry had arrived, just not for him. The pirate ships scattered like frightened fish. The Valoran warships didn't chase them. One of them turned toward Do-hyun's dying ship. He tried to power up his engines to run, but nothing worked. His ship was dead in space. A tractor beam locked onto him. Do-hyun felt his ship being pulled toward the warship's hangar bay. His vision was getting blurry from lack of oxygen. The cabin was so hot now. He fumbled with his emergency breathing mask, but his fingers wouldn't work right. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the hangar bay doors opening like a giant metal mouth, ready to swallow him whole. When Do-hyun woke up, he wasn't dead. That was the good news. The bad news was he was lying on a metal bench in a cell. The walls were smooth and gray without windows or visible doors. A force field hummed across the entrance, glowing faintly blue. He sat up slowly, checking himself for injuries. He was sore and bruised, but nothing was broken. Someone had treated his burns and given him clean clothes. Valoran military clothes, he realized. Gray and plain with no rank markings. Prisoner clothes. Footsteps echoed outside his cell. The force field flickered off and 2 Valoran soldiers walked in. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and sharp features. They wore black armor that looked both elegant and deadly. Their eyes were cold as they looked at him. "Stand up, human," one of them said. Her voice was hard and emotionless. Do-hyun stood. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself steady. "Where am I?" "You ask no questions," the soldier said. "You follow." They led him through corridors of polished metal. Do-hyun saw other soldiers, all moving with perfect precision. Everything was clean and organized. The ship felt more like a temple than a military vessel. He passed windows that showed the black of space outside. There were no other ships visible. They had jumped far from the battle site. The soldiers brought him to a large door that slid open with a whisper. The room beyond was sparse. A metal table. 3 chairs. Bright lights overhead that hurt his eyes. An interrogation room. 2 officers sat on the far side of the table. They wore gray uniforms with silver markings that Do-hyun didn't recognize. Their faces showed no emotion as they gestured for him to sit. Do-hyun sat. The soldiers who had escorted him stood behind him, hands on their weapons. "You are Do-hyun," one officer said. It wasn't a question. "Human cargo pilot. No military record. No criminal record. You own 1 small transport ship." "Owned," Do-hyun said. "I think my ship is scrapped now." The officer's expression didn't change. "Why were you in Sector 7? "Hauling medical supplies to Station Kadara. It's a legal route." "Why did you attack the pirate vessels?" Do-hyun blinked. "Attack? I was trying to help. The transport was about to be destroyed." "You interfered with an attack on a royal transport. You engaged hostile vessels. You created debris that could have damaged the transport further." "Why?" "Because people were dying," Do-hyun said, feeling frustration rise in his chest. "I couldn't just watch." The 2 officers looked at each other. Something passed between them, some silent conversation. The second officer leaned forward. "Humans are not permitted in royal space. Your presence in that sector was illegal. Your attack on vessels, even pirate vessels, without authorization is illegal. Your interference with royal affairs is illegal. You face execution." The words hit Do-hyun like cold water. "Execution? I saved them." "You broke our laws. Ignorance is not an excuse." Do-hyun opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. These people didn't care about his reasons. They cared about rules. He had broken into their perfect, ordered world and made a mess. That was all they saw. The door opened again. Everyone in the room stood instantly, even the officers. Do-hyun struggled to his feet, confused. A young woman walked in, and Do-hyun knew immediately she was important. She moved like power itself, each step measured and deliberate. She wore robes of deep red silk, and her black hair was arranged in an elaborate style held by silver pins. Her face was beautiful but cold, like a statue carved from ice. "Princess," both officers said, bowing their heads. "The princess." Do-hyun's mind raced. This was the person he had saved. Princess Yoonji, if he remembered the royal names correctly. She looked young, maybe mid-20s, but her eyes were much older. She walked around the table and stood in front of Do-hyun. She studied him like he was a strange insect she had found. "You are the human pilot." "Yes," Do-hyun said. "You saved my transport." "I tried to help, yes. Why?" It was the same question everyone kept asking, and Do-hyun was tired of it. "Because it was the right thing to do." Princess Yoonji was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to the officers. "This human is under my protection. Anyone who harms him will answer to me personally. Is that clear?" The officers looked shocked but nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Highness. He will accompany me to the imperial capital. I will present him to the Queen. Prepare a secure cabin for him." She turned back to Do-hyun. "You have created a problem, human. A life debt is sacred in Valoran law. You saved my life. I cannot leave that debt. The journey to Valoran Prime took 3 days. Do-hyun spent them locked in a small cabin that was nicer than any room he had ever lived in. The bed was soft, the walls were decorated with patterns that seemed to shift in the light, and meals appeared through a slot in the wall 3 times a day. The food was strange but good. Everything was perfect and Do-hyun hated it. He felt like an animal in a golden cage. No one spoke to him except the guards who brought his meals. They never answered his questions. He had no idea what was happening outside his cabin, or what fate awaited him on the capital world. On the 3rd day, the ship shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Do-hyun pressed his face against the small window and saw a planet that took his breath away. Valoran Prime was beautiful in a way that didn't seem natural. The continents were arranged in perfect geometric patterns. The oceans were a deep purple color. 3 moons hung in the sky, perfectly spaced. Everything about it looked designed, controlled, ordered. A guard entered his cabin. "Come with me. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look directly at the queen. Do not touch anything. Follow these rules and you may survive the day." Do-hyun followed the guard through the ship to a docking bay. They boarded a small transport that took them down to the planet's surface. Through the windows, Do-hyun saw cities that stretched as far as he could see. Buildings rose in spirals of silver and crystal. Vehicles moved in perfect lines through the air. Everything was clean, organized, and slightly terrifying. The transport landed on a platform near the largest building Do-hyun had ever seen. The Imperial Palace was a mountain of white stone and glass rising so high that clouds drifted past its upper levels. Towers and bridges connected different sections, creating a structure that looked like frozen music. More guards met them at the landing platform. These wore red armor instead of black, and they surrounded Do-hyun like he was a dangerous criminal. They marched him through gates that were 3 stories tall, down hallways lined with statues, past rooms filled with treasures from 1,000 worlds. Everything was beautiful and cold. Do-hyun saw other people in the hallways. Nobles in elaborate clothes, servants in simple gray uniforms, officials carrying data tablets. All of them stopped and stared as he passed. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to disgust. A human in the Imperial Palace was clearly an unusual sight. "Keep moving," a guard growled when Do-hyun slowed down to look around. They brought him to a massive set of doors decorated with the crimson seal of the royal family. The doors opened silently, revealing a throne room that was larger than most buildings. The ceiling was so high that Do-hyun couldn't see it clearly. Columns of carved stone lined both sides of the room. At the far end, elevated on a platform, sat a throne carved from a single piece of black crystal. The room was filled with people. Hundreds of nobles in their finest clothes stood on either side of a long walkway. They all turned to watch as Do-hyun was led forward. The silence was heavy enough to crush him. Princess Yoonji stood near the throne. She wore robes of red and gold today, and her face was calm and expressionless. She didn't look at Do-hyun as he approached. On the throne sat Queen Miran. Do-hyun had seen pictures of the queen before, but they hadn't prepared him for meeting her in person. She was ageless, her face showing no clear number of years. Her black hair was streaked with silver and arranged in an elaborate crown. Her robes were pure white, simple compared to the nobles around her, but somehow more impressive. Her eyes were dark and sharp, and when she looked at Do-hyun, he felt like she could see straight through him. A guard pushed Do-hyun's shoulder, forcing him to kneel. He dropped to one knee on the cold stone floor, his heart pounding. "Rise," the queen said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried through the entire room. Do-hyun stood, keeping his eyes down as the guard had instructed. "Look at me," Queen Miran said. Do-hyun lifted his eyes. The queen studied him with the same expression Princess Yoonji had used, like he was a puzzle that needed solving. "You are the human who saved my daughter," she said. "Yes, your majesty. My daughter tells me you attacked 3 pirate vessels with a cargo hauler, that you used debris as cover, that you drew their fire away from her transport, that you nearly died in the process." The queen paused. "She also tells me you did this for no profit. No reward, no agreement of payment. Is this true?" "Yes, your majesty." A murmur ran through the crowd of nobles. Do-hyun heard whispers that weren't quite quiet enough. "Impossible. Humans don't act without profit. There must be another reason." Queen Miran raised one hand and silence fell instantly. "Why did you do it?" Do-hyun had answered this question so many times, but he knew his answer mattered more now than ever. Because someone needed help. Because I could do something. Because walking away felt wrong. You risked your life for strangers. For Velorans, no less. Your kind is not known for loving ours. I'm not a hero, Your Majesty. I just couldn't watch people die when I might be able to help. The Queen was silent for a long moment. The entire room held its breath. Then she spoke again. In Veloran law, a life debt is sacred. My daughter owes you her life. By extension, the royal family owes you a debt. This is not a simple matter. She stood from her throne. The movement sent another ripple through the crowd. I declare before this court that Do-hyun, human pilot, is under the protection of the crown. Any who harm him answer to me. He is granted the title of royal ward and will reside in the palace until his debt is satisfied. Princess Yunji stepped forward and bowed to her mother. Thank you, my queen. Queen Moran nodded. Take him to the East Wing. See that he has everything he needs. She looked at Do-hyun one more time. You have entered a dangerous world, human. I suggest you learn its rules quickly. The guards led Do-hyun out of the throne room. As the doors closed behind him, he heard the nobles burst into conversation. The sound was like a dam breaking. They took him through more hallways to a section of the palace that was quieter. The guards stopped at a door and opened it, gesturing for him to enter. Do-hyun walked into a suite of rooms that was bigger than his entire ship had been. There was a bedroom with a bed large enough for 3 people, a sitting room with comfortable furniture, a bathroom with a tub carved from stone, and windows that looked out over the city below. Someone will bring you proper clothes, a guard said. Do not leave these rooms without escort. Do not speak to nobles without permission. Do not cause trouble. The door closed and Do-hyun was alone again. He walked to the window and looked out at the alien city. Millions of Valorans lived down there going about their lives, and he was stuck in a palace above them all. Protected but imprisoned. Safe but trapped. He sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. He had saved a princess. The queen had declared him protected. But he had heard the whispers in the throne room. He had seen the looks on the nobles' faces. They didn't want him here. They saw him as an insult, a violation of their perfect world. Someone knocked on his door. Do-hyun stood as a servant entered, carrying an armful of clothes. The servant was young with nervous eyes. She placed the clothes on a table and started to leave quickly. Wait, Do-hyun said. What's your name? The servant froze, looking terrified. Servants do not speak to guests, sir. I'm not asking as a guest. I'm asking as someone who doesn't know anyone here, please. What's your name? The servant hesitated. Soman, sir. Thank you, Soman. Can you tell me what people are saying about me? Soman looked at the door, then back at Do-hyun. She spoke quickly, quietly. They say you are dangerous. That humans cannot be trusted. That the Queen made a mistake protecting you. Some say you must have helped plan the pirate attack to earn favor. Others say you are a spy, she paused. But some say you are brave. That what you did was honorable even if you are human. Which do you think? Soman met his eyes for just a moment. I think anyone who risks death to save strangers cannot be all bad. Then she bowed and hurried out of the room. Do-hyun looked at the clothes she had brought. They were Veloran style, gray and simple but well made. He changed out of his prison clothes, trying to make himself look presentable. He had just finished when someone else knocked on his door. Princess Yunji entered without waiting for permission. She was alone, without guards or servants. Up close, Do-hyun could see she looked tired. Your Highness, Do-hyun said, not sure if he should bow. The guards outside will stop anyone from entering, Yunji said. We can speak freely. She walked to the window and looked out. I wanted to thank you properly. In the throne room, I could not show emotion. It would have been seen as weakness. You already thanked me by saving my life. We're even. We are not even. You charged into battle with no weapons, no armor, no hope of survival. You did it for strangers, for people who would have ignored your death if the situations were reversed. She turned to face him. Why? I keep getting asked that question. Because none of us understand the answer. In Veloran society, actions have reasons. Trade for profit. Fight for honor. Serve for advancement. But you acted for nothing. It makes no sense. Do-hyun sat in one of the chairs. Maybe that's a human thing. We're not good. Do-hyun spent the next 2 days in his new rooms, trying to process everything that had happened. The new quarters were smaller but more secure, with guards posted directly outside his door. Servants brought him meals, but no one spoke to him. He was isolated in the heart of the palace, surrounded by people but completely alone. On the third morning, a guard knocked on his door. The Queen requests your presence. Come now. Do-hyun followed the guard through corridors he hadn't seen before. These hallways were less decorated, more functional. They passed fewer people. Eventually they stopped at a plain door that looked like it belonged to a storage room, not a throne room. The guard knocked twice, then opened the door and gestured for Do-hyun to enter alone. The room beyond was small and simple. There was a table with maps spread across it, a few chairs and shelves filled with data tablets. No decorations, no luxury. This was a working room, not a place for ceremony. Queen Moran stood at the table studying the maps. She wore simple gray clothes, not her royal robes. Her hair was tied back in a practical style. She looked less like a queen and more like a military commander. "Close the door," she said without looking up. Do-hyun closed the door. He stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do. "Sit," the Queen said, gesturing to a chair. "We have much to discuss, and I dislike wasting time with formal nonsense." Do-hyun sat carefully. This felt like a trap, but he didn't know how to avoid it. Queen Moran finally looked at him. "Tell me about the assassins. Everything you remember." Do-hyun described the attack, how they moved, how they fought, what weapons they used. The Queen listened without interrupting, her expression thoughtful. "They were professionals from House Kwan," she said when he finished. "One of the oldest noble families. They confessed under questioning." She paused. "They also died under questioning, before they could name who hired them. Very convenient. Why would House Kwan want me dead? Because you represent something they fear. Change." Queen Moran walked to the window looking out over the city. "The Valoran Empire has existed for 3,000 years. In that time, we have conquered hundreds of worlds. We have built a civilization based on order, hierarchy, and tradition. Everything has its place. Everyone knows their role." She turned back to face him. "Then you arrive, a human, an outsider. You save a princess not for profit or advancement, but because you wanted to. You survive an attack by trained killers using nothing but furniture and luck. You don't follow our rules because you don't understand them. And in not understanding them, you expose how rigid those rules have become." "I don't want to change anything," Do-hyun said. "I just want to go home." "Where is home for you?" The question caught Do-hyun off guard. He thought about his cargo ship now destroyed. He thought about the stations where he had docked, never staying long enough to make friends. He thought about the colony where he had grown up, which he had left 15 years ago and never returned to. "I don't know anymore." "Exactly," Queen Moran said. "You have no home, no family, no loyalty to any government or organization. You are completely free, which makes you completely unpredictable." She sat in the chair across from him. "I have been queen for 40 years. I have fought wars. I have crushed rebellions. I have expanded our empire to its greatest extent in history. And I have never met anyone like you. Is that good or bad?" "Both, neither. I haven't decided yet." The Queen leaned forward. "I brought you here to make you an offer. I want you to work for me." Do-hyun stared at her. "Work for you? Doing what?" "Whatever I need. The Empire has enemies both outside and within. We face threats from rival civilizations. We deal with corruption in our own government. We struggle with pirates, smugglers, terrorists, and rebels. I have thousands of soldiers, hundreds of spies, and dozens of advisors. But all of them think like Valorans. They follow protocols. They operate within systems." She stood and walked back to the table, pointing at the maps. "These are our borders. These are known threats. These are problem areas that my commanders cannot solve using traditional methods. I need someone who thinks differently. Someone who can break rules and improvise. Someone who has nothing to lose and no loyalty to our old ways. You want me to be your spy? I want you to be my problem solver. Sometimes that means intelligence gathering. Sometimes it means direct action. Sometimes it means thinking of solutions no one else would consider." She looked at him directly. "You charged 3 pirate ships and a cargo hauler. That kind of insane bravery is exactly what I need." Do-hyun felt anger rising in his chest. "No, I'm not a soldier. I'm not a spy. I'm a pilot who made a bad decision and got caught in your politics. I just want to leave." "Leave to where?" Queen Moran's voice was sharp. "Your ship is destroyed. You have no money. And more importantly, your face has been broadcast across the Empire. Every faction knows who you are now. Some see you as a hero. Others see you as a symbol of human interference. Many want you dead. Do you think you could survive a week on your own? I'll take my chances. You'll die. and it will be ugly. The queen walked to him, her eyes hard. Let me explain your situation clearly. You cannot stay in the palace indefinitely. The nobles will plot against you constantly. You cannot leave the empire because you have no ship and no way to earn passage. You cannot hide because everyone knows your face. Your only option is to accept my protection and work for me. That's not a choice. That's blackmail. Call it what you like. It is still the truth. Queen Mirren returned to her chair. I will sweeten the offer. Work for me for 1 year. Prove your value. At the end of that year, I will give you a ship, enough money to start over and safe passage to anywhere in the galaxy. You'll have your freedom back. And if I refuse, I will remove my protection. You will be free to leave the palace. I estimate you'll survive 3 days before someone kills you. Do-hyun wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He was trapped. The moment he had saved Princess Yoonji, he had stepped into a world he didn't understand and couldn't escape. His choices were to work for the queen or die. If I agree, he said slowly, I have conditions. Queen Moran raised an eyebrow. You negotiate? Interesting, continue. I won't kill innocent people. I won't torture. I won't do anything that goes against my conscience. If you order me to do something I think is wrong, I'll refuse. Even if it means losing my protection? Even then. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then surprisingly, she smiled. It was a real smile this time, not the cold expression she usually wore. Good, I don't want a mindless tool. I want someone who thinks and questions. Your conditions are acceptable. She stood and extended her hand. Do we have an agreement? Do-hyun looked at her hand. This was it. The moment that would decide his future. He could refuse, walk out of the palace, and probably die within days. Or he could accept, become the queen's agent, and hope to survive long enough to earn his freedom. He shook her hand. We have an agreement. Excellent. Queen Moran sat back down and pulled up a holographic display from the table. Images appeared in the air between them. Your first assignment is simple. A test, really. One of our colony worlds has gone silent. No communications for 2 weeks. The official report blames technical failures, but I suspect something more. What do you think happened? I don't know, which is why I'm sending you to investigate. You'll go with a team of military specialists. Your job is to observe and think. If you see something my soldiers miss, speak up. If you have ideas, share them. I want to see how your human perspective works in practice. When do I leave? Tomorrow morning. I'll have Yoonji brief you on the details tonight. She'll be your liaison while you work for me. The queen stood, signaling the meeting was over. One more thing. The team you're going with doesn't know you're working directly for me. As far as they know, you're just a civilian observer who I'm protecting due to the life debt. Keep it that way. Why? Because I don't know who I can trust yet. The assassination attempt came from inside the palace. Someone with access and authority. Until I find out who, everyone is a suspect. She walked to the door and opened it. Go rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Do-hyun stood and walked to the door. As he passed the queen, he stopped. Why are you really doing this? You could have just kept me locked in the palace until people forgot about me. Why make me your agent? Queen Moran looked at him with those dark, sharp eyes. Because the empire is dying and most people don't see it yet. We're becoming stagnant, predictable. Our enemies are adapting while we cling to old methods. I need new thinking if we're going to survive the next century. And you, strange human pilot, think very differently from anyone I've ever met. She closed the door, leaving Do-hyun alone in the hallway with guards who watched him suspiciously. He walked back to his rooms, his mind spinning. He had just agreed to work for one of the most powerful and dangerous people in the galaxy. He was going to be sent into unknown danger with soldiers who probably hated him, and he had no idea what he was doing. That evening, Princess Yoonji came to his rooms with data tablets and maps. She spent 2 hours briefing him on the colony world, the military team he'd be joining, and what equipment he'd be given. She was professional and thorough, but Do-hyun could. The military transport was nothing like the royal warship that had brought Do-hyun to Velaran Prime. This ship was built for function, not comfort. Metal walls, harsh lighting, and the smell of recycled air. Do-hyun sat in the cargo bay with the rest of the team, strapped into an uncomfortable seat that dug into his back. Commander Ha-jin stood at the front of the bay, reviewing the mission details on a holographic display. He was tall and lean, with gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. His uniform was covered in medals and rank insignia. He hadn't looked at Do-hyun once since they boarded. Listen carefully, Hajin said, his voice cutting through the engine noise. Colony 794 went silent 14 days ago. Last communication was a routine status report. No distress signal, no warning. The colony has 3,000 inhabitants, mostly miners and their families. Our job is to determine what happened and restore communications. He pulled up an image of the colony. It was built into the side of a mountain, with tunnels extending deep underground where the valuable minerals were. Surface structures included housing, a spaceport, and processing facilities. It looked cold and unwelcoming. We go in fast and careful, Hajin continued. I want sensors active, weapons ready. If there's a threat, we identify it and neutralize it. If there are survivors, we secure them and establish a perimeter. Questions? One of the soldiers raised his hand. Commander, what about the civilian? He pointed at Do-hyun without looking at him. Hajin's jaw tightened. The human is here on the Queen's orders. He observes only. He does not carry weapons. He does not make decisions. He stays out of our way. Clear? Clear, sir, the soldier said. Do-hyun said nothing. He could feel the hostility from every person in the bay. These were professional soldiers, trained and experienced. They didn't want a civilian human tagging along, no matter whose orders he was following. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the viewport, Do-hyun saw a gray planet with thin clouds. It looked dead even from space. The transport descended through the atmosphere, heading for the colony's spaceport. As they got closer, Do-hyun could see that something was wrong. The lights were off. No vehicles moved on the landing pads. No communications chatter came through the radio. The colony looked abandoned. The transport landed on the main pad. Commander Hajin ordered everyone into formation. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, checking their weapons and gear. Do-hyun was given a basic environmental suit and communication headset, then told to stay in the middle of the group where he couldn't cause trouble. The cargo ramp lowered. Cold air rushed in. The soldiers moved out in perfect formation, weapons ready, scanning for threats. Do-hyun followed, trying not to get in anyone's way. The spaceport was empty. Equipment sat where it had been left, covered in a thin layer of dust. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just emptiness and silence. Spread out, Hajin ordered. Teams of 2. Search every building. Report anything unusual. The soldiers split up. Do-hyun was assigned to stay with Hajin and one other soldier, a woman named Mion who looked at him like he was a stain on her uniform. They moved through the spaceport, checking offices and storage rooms. Everything looked normal except for the absence of people. This doesn't make sense, Mion said. No bodies, no damage. Where did everyone go? Hajin didn't answer. He was studying his scanner, frowning at the readings. The power grid is active. Life support is running, but I'm not picking up any life signs. They moved deeper into the colony. The residential areas were even more unsettling. Meals sat on tables, half-eaten and now moldy. Beds were unmade. Personal belongings were scattered around like people had just stepped out for a moment. But there was no one. 3,000 people had simply vanished. Do-hyun stopped at one apartment. There were children's toys on the floor. A small jacket hung by the door. He thought about the families who had lived here, the normal lives they had been living before something had taken them all away. Keep moving, Hajin growled at him. They regrouped at the colony's central hub, a large building that housed the administrative offices. All teams reported the same thing. Empty buildings, active systems, no people, no explanation. This is wrong, one soldier said. People don't just disappear. There should be something. Bodies, blood, signs of a fight, anything. Hajin studied his scanner again. I'm picking up a faint energy signature from the mining tunnels. Deep underground. It's weak, but it's there. Could be survivors, Mion suggested, or the cause of whatever happened here. Hajin looked at his team. We go down. Standard formation. Watch your sectors. The tunnel entrance was a large shaft with an elevator that descended hundreds of meters into the mountain. The elevator was still powered. They rode down in tense silence, weapons ready. The shaft walls were rough stone lit by dim emergency lights. The elevator stopped at the main mining level. The doors opened onto a vast network of tunnels carved from the rock. Mining equipment sat silent. Rail cars filled with ore waited to be transported to the surface. And everywhere was that same unsettling emptiness. Do-hyun's instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. The absence of people was unnatural. In his experience, even disasters left traces. Bodies, debris, something. This was like everyone had been erased from existence. "Commander," one soldier called. "I found something." They moved to where the soldier was standing. He pointed his light into a side tunnel. On the walls were strange marks like something had been dragged across the stone. The marks glowed faintly in the darkness, pulsing with a soft blue light. "What is that?" Mion asked. Hajin scanned the marks. Unknown material. Not organic, not metallic. The energy signature matches what I detected earlier. He touched one of the marks carefully. His glove came away with a residue that glowed briefly before fading. "Fan out," Hajin ordered. "Follow the marks. Stay in contact." They moved deeper into the tunnels. The glowing marks became more frequent, covering the walls and floor. The energy signature grew stronger. Doyen felt a strange pressure in his head, like something was watching them. Then they found the source. In a large cavern at the heart of the mining complex, there was a machine. It was huge, maybe 20 meters tall, made of materials Doyen didn't recognize. Smooth black surfaces, glowing blue lines, a shape that seemed to shift when you looked directly at it. The machine hummed with power and the air around it seemed to shimmer. "What is that?" Mion whispered. Hajin's scanner was going crazy. Unknown technology. Energy readings are off the scale. This shouldn't exist. One of the soldiers stepped closer to the machine. "Commander, there's something—" The machine's hum changed pitch. The blue lines flared brighter. The soldier who had stepped closer suddenly froze, his body going rigid. His eyes rolled back. Then he simply vanished. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone. No flash of light. No sound, just gone. "Fall back!" Hajin shouted. But it was too late. The machine was fully active now. The shimmer in the air expanded, forming a sphere that grew larger by the second. Soldiers tried to run, but the sphere moved faster. One by one, they were caught by it. Each person touched by the shimmer simply disappeared. Do-hyun ran. His heart hammered in his chest. Behind him, he could hear screaming cut off mid-sound. The sphere was expanding, consuming everything it touched. He sprinted down the tunnel, not looking back, knowing that looking back meant death. He reached the elevator shaft. Mion was there, frantically pressing the button. Hajin arrived a second later, his face pale. 2 other soldiers made it. Everyone else was gone. "Move!" Hajin shoved them into the elevator. He slammed the button for the surface. The doors closed just as the shimmer reached them. The elevator shot upward. Through the elevator's small window, Do-hyun could see the shimmer filling the shaft below them. It was rising, following them. The elevator wasn't moving fast enough. "We're not going to make it," Mion said, her voice shaking. Do-hyun's mind raced. The shimmer was some kind of field. Energy-based. If it was energy, maybe it could be disrupted. "Do we have any explosives?" "What?" Hajin looked at him like he was insane. "Explosives, grenades, anything that makes a big blast." "We have breaching charges," one soldier said. "Set them now, set them to explode below us." "That's insane," Hajin said. "We're in an elevator shaft. The blast could kill us. And that thing behind us definitely will kill us. At least this gives us a chance." Hajin looked at the shimmer rising below them. They had seconds. He made a decision. "Do it." The soldier pulled out 2 breaching charges and set them to detonate on a 3-second delay. He dropped them down the shaft. "Fire in the hole." Everyone braced. The explosion came like a hammer. The elevator shook violently. Do-hyun was thrown against the wall. His ears rang. Smoke and heat filled the shaft. But the elevator kept moving. And below them, the shimmer had stopped. The blast had disrupted it, at least temporarily. They reached the surface. The doors opened and they stumbled out, coughing and bruised but alive. Behind them, the elevator shaft was filled with smoke. There were no sounds of pursuit. "Move to the ship," Hajin ordered. "Now." They ran through the empty column 3 weeks passed after the colony mission. Do-hyun spent his days training with Velaran soldiers who still didn't trust him, but could no longer ignore him. Word had spread about what happened on Colony 794. The human had suggested the plan that saved Commander Hajin and the survivors. Some soldiers started looking at him with less hostility. Others watched him with suspicion, wondering if he was dangerous. Princess Yunji visited him regularly, bringing news from the court. The investigation into the assassination attempt had gone nowhere. Whoever ordered it had covered their tracks too well. The Queen was sending ships to secure the colony world, but the ancient weapon had gone dormant and couldn't be moved safely. It would have to be destroyed eventually when they had the resources. Life in the palace settled into a strange routine. Do-hyun was no longer a prisoner, but he wasn't free either. He attended strategy meetings as an observer. He studied Valoran history and politics. He learned about the Empire's enemies and allies. The Queen was preparing him for something, though she hadn't said what yet. Then one evening everything changed. A servant knocked on his door urgently. "The Queen requests your presence immediately. Private chambers, not the war room." Do-hyun followed the servant through corridors he had never seen before. These were the royal family's personal quarters, heavily guarded and off-limits to most people. The servant stopped at a large door carved with elaborate patterns and knocked softly. "Enter," came the Queen's voice. Do-hyun stepped inside and stopped. This room was completely different from the other spaces he had seen the Queen use. It was comfortable, even cozy. Soft lighting, bookshelves filled with actual paper books, a fireplace with a real fire, comfortable chairs. This was where Moran came when she wasn't being the Queen. She stood by the fireplace, not wearing her royal robes, but a simple gray dress. Her hair was down, not styled in its usual elaborate way. She looked tired and somehow younger without all the formal trappings. "Close the door," she said. "This conversation is private. No recording, no witnesses." Do-hyun closed the door. He stood awkwardly, not sure what to do. "Sit." Moran gestured to one of the chairs by the fire. "Would you like something to drink?" "No, thank you." She poured herself a glass of something amber-colored from a crystal bottle and sat in the other chair. "Do you know why I brought you here tonight?" "No, Your Majesty. Drop the formality. Right now in this room I'm not your Queen. I'm just Moran and you're just Do-hyun. Two people having a conversation." She took a sip of her drink. "I brought you here because I wanted to talk without the games. Without the politics. Just honesty." Do-hyun relaxed slightly. "Honesty sounds good. Tell me about your life before you came here. Your real life, not the facts in your file." So Do-hyun told her about growing up on a colony world where resources were scarce and life was hard. About his parents who died in a mining accident when he was 16. About working whatever jobs he could find to buy his first ship. About spending 15 years flying cargo from one station to another. Never staying long, never forming real connections. About being alone in space where no one expected anything from him, and he didn't have to disappoint anyone. Moran listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "You've been running. From grief. From attachment. From the risk of losing people you care about." "Maybe," Do-hyun admitted. "It's easier to be alone." "Is it?" Moran swirled the liquid in her glass. "Let me tell you about my life. I became Queen at 25 when my mother was assassinated. I wasn't supposed to rule. My older brother was next in line, but he died in the same attack. Suddenly I was thrown into power, young and unprepared, with enemies on all sides who saw me as weak." She stared into the fire. "I learned to be hard, to trust no one, to see every conversation as a negotiation, and every person as either an asset or a threat. I spent 40 years building the Empire into what it is today. I won wars. I crushed rebellions. I eliminated anyone who challenged me. And I became very, very good at being alone in a room full of people." "Sounds lonely," Do-hyun said quietly. "It is. The loneliest thing in the universe." Moran looked at him. "Do you know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who risked everything to save a stranger. Someone who survived an assassination attempt and showed mercy to his attackers. Someone who faced an ancient weapon and thought of a solution instead of freezing. Someone who questions orders and demands conditions. Someone who is honest when everyone around me tells comfortable lies." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "The Empire is dying, Do-hyun. Not today. Not tomorrow. But it's dying. We've become too rigid, too afraid of change. We follow protocols that made sense 1,000 years ago but are meaningless now. Our enemies adapt while we cling to tradition. And I don't know how to fix it because I'm part of the problem. I've spent my life enforcing those traditions." "Why are you telling me this?" Do-hyun asked. "Because I need someone I can trust. Someone who isn't Valoran, who doesn't care about our politics, who has nothing to gain by lying to me. Someone who will tell me when I'm wrong." She turned back to face him. "I thought I could use you as a tool. send you on missions, get value from your different perspective, then let you go after a year. But these past weeks have shown me something. I don't need another tool. I need a real advisor, someone who can help me see what I'm missing. I'm not qualified to advise a queen. I barely understand your government. Exactly. You see things we miss because we're too close to them. Like on the colony. My soldiers would have followed protocol, established a perimeter, waited for more information. You suggested throwing explosives in an elevator shaft because it was the only chance. It was insane and brilliant and completely not Veleran. Miran sat down again, leaning forward. I want to offer you a new position. Not as my operative, but as my personal advisor. Real authority to question my decisions. To sit in on high-level meetings. To offer your perspective on major policies. It would make you powerful, which would make you even more of a target. But it would also give you the chance to actually make a difference. Do-hyun's mind raced. This was way beyond what he had expected. The nobles would riot. Hajin and the military barely tolerate me now. Let them riot. I'm the queen. They'll adapt or they'll be replaced. She smiled slightly. Besides, you've already proven yourself to some of them. Hajin included you in his report as a positive factor. That's high praise from him. And what about the year agreement? The ship and freedom you promised? It still stands. 1 year from when you started. Work with me until then. If you want to leave after that, I'll honor my promise. But if you want to stay, she paused. If you want to stay, I think we could do something remarkable together. Do-hyun looked at the fire, thinking. A month ago, he would have refused immediately. He would have counted the days until he could leave. But something had changed. Maybe it was seeing the colony. Maybe it was surviving the assassination. Maybe it was sitting in this room with a queen who had dropped her mask and shown him the lonely person underneath. I'll do it, he said. But the conditions still apply. I won't compromise my conscience. I wouldn't ask you to. Miran raised her glass. To new partnerships and whatever chaos they bring. Do-hyun didn't have a glass, so he just nodded. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the fire. Then Miran spoke again. There's something you should know. Tomorrow I'm announcing your new position to the court. There will be opposition. Duke Taewon has been gathering support among the noble houses. He plans to challenge me publicly. The same Duke who probably ordered the assassination attempt? The same. I haven't been able to prove it yet, but I will. Tomorrow's announcement will force him to act. He'll either accept my decision or openly defy me. Either way, we'll finally know where everyone stands. Sounds dangerous. It is. But necessary. The Empire can't move forward while we're fighting invisible enemies. Better to bring the conflict into the open. She looked at him seriously. Stay close to Yoonji tomorrow. If things go wrong, she'll get you to safety. What about you? I've survived 40 years of court politics. I'll be fine. She stood. Go rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. Do-hyun stood to leave, then paused. Thank you. For trusting me. For being honest. Miran's expression softened just slightly. Thank you for giving me a reason to trust again. Back in his quarters, Do-hyun couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the conversation. About Miran not as the queen, but as a person who had spent 40 years alone in power. About the risk she was taking by making him an advisor. About Duke Taewon and whatever he was planning. Princess Yoonji arrived early the next morning, looking worried. Mother told me about her plan. This is bold even for her. Do you think Taewon will back down? No, he's been building to this for months. He sees my mother's favor toward you as proof that she's losing her judgment. He'll use today's announcement to rally support. Yoonji paced the room. We've prepared for this. Loyal guards, secure routes. But if violence breaks out in the throne room, your mother seems confident. My mother is always confident. That's what makes her a great queen and a terrifying mother. Yoonji stopped Passy 2 months passed after the coup attempt. The palace slowly returned to normal, though normal was different now. Duke Taewon and 17 other nobles were executed for treason. Their families lost their titles and properties. The message was clear. Betraying the queen meant death for everyone involved. Do-hyun's position as special advisor was no longer questioned. He attended every high-level meeting. He reviewed military reports. He advised on diplomatic issues, and slowly, reluctantly, people started to listen to him. Not because they liked him, but because he had saved the queen's life and his ideas often worked. Commander Hajin became an unlikely ally. After the coup, he told Do-hyun that he respected anyone who would jump out a window to save their queen. They started meeting regularly to discuss military strategy. Hajin taught Do-hyun about Valoran warfare. Do-hyun shared human perspectives on tactics and adaptation. Princess Yoonji spent more time with him too. She was grateful he had protected her mother. But more than that, she saw how he was changing the court. People were starting to question old assumptions, to consider new approaches. The rigid hierarchy was becoming slightly less rigid. One evening, Do-hyun was in his quarters reviewing reports when someone knocked. He opened the door to find Queen Miran alone and wearing casual clothes. "We need to talk," she said. "Somewhere private." They walked through the palace gardens. It was late, and they were alone except for distant guards who kept a respectful distance. The moons hung bright in the sky, casting silver light over the carefully arranged flowers and trees. "I've been thinking about what you said during the coup," Miran began. "About staying because you care. About not running anymore. Did I say something wrong?" "No. You said something that made me realize how broken I've become." She stopped walking and looked at him. "For 40 years I've treated people as tools. Useful or useless, loyal or disloyal. I never let anyone get close because closeness meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant weakness. That sounds lonely." It was. Is, but necessary, I thought. Miran started walking again. "Then you came along. You're not a tool. You question me. You argue with me. You save me when you should run, and somehow against all logic I trust you more than anyone I've trusted in decades." Do-hyun didn't know what to say. In the months he had known Miran, she had been a queen, a strategist, a fighter. But right now she was just a person trying to figure out how to connect with another person. "I trust you too," he said simply. "Why? I forced you into service. I put you in danger. I've made you a target for everyone who hates change in the Empire. Because you've been honest with me. From that first night in your private chambers, you showed me who you really are. Not the queen, just Miran, that matters." They walked in silence for a while. Then Miran spoke again. "The Empire is changing. The coup showed everyone that the old order isn't as stable as they thought. Some nobles are adapting, starting to consider new ideas. Others are resisting harder than ever. We're at a turning point. What are you going to do? Push forward. Use this moment to implement reforms. Modernize our military. Open trade with civilizations we used to ignore. Bring new voices into government, not just Valoran nobles." She looked at him. "And I need your help. Not just as an advisor, but as a partner in this transformation. I'm already helping. I mean more than that. I want to send you on diplomatic missions. Have you represent the Empire to other civilizations. Show the galaxy that we're changing, that we're willing to work with outsiders." Do-hyun stopped walking. "You want me to be a diplomat? I barely understand Valoran politics and you want me dealing with aliens? That's exactly why you're perfect for it. You don't carry the baggage of Valoran superiority. You can talk to other species as equals, not subjects. You can build bridges where my traditional diplomats have built walls. The nobles will hate it. The nobles already hate it. But they can't stop it. Not after the coup failed and you proved your loyalty." Miran smiled slightly. "Besides, I'm the queen. They'll learn to adapt." "When would this start?" "Soon. There's a diplomatic summit in 3 weeks. The Kithran Dominion wants to discuss a trade agreement. My usual diplomats have failed 3 times to reach any progress. I want you to try. The Kithrans are your enemies. They were. They could become allies if we handle this right. And that would change the balance of power in this sector." Miran's expression became serious. "This is important, Do-hyun. This summit could determine whether the Empire thrives or declines over the next century. No pressure then." "None at all," Miran said with rare humor. "So will you do it?" Do-hyun thought about it. 6 months ago, he had been a simple cargo pilot. Now he was being asked to negotiate with an alien empire on behalf of the Valorans. It was insane. It was terrifying. It was exactly the kind of challenge he had been avoiding his whole life. "I'll do it," he said. "But I need help. I need briefings on Kithran culture, their history, what they want. What we can offer, everything. You'll have it. Yoonji will coordinate your preparation. She's been to Kithran space before." Miran put her hand on his shoulder. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For staying. For being someone I can trust. We're partners, remember? Partners help each other." They walked back to the palace together. Above them, the stars shone bright, and Do-hyun realized he wasn't thinking about escape anymore. He was thinking about tomorrow, about the summit, about how to help an empire change, about building something instead of running from it. The next 3 weeks were intense. Princess Yoonji brought him data tablets full of information about the Kithrans. They were an insectoid species, highly logical and organized. They valued efficiency and directness. Traditional Velaran diplomacy, full of formal ceremonies and subtle hints, frustrated them completely. The key is to be straightforward, Yoonji explained. Kithrans hate wasted time. State your position clearly. Ask direct questions. Don't try to manipulate or hint. They see it as dishonest. So basically, talk like a human. Exactly. That's why Mother thinks you might succeed where our diplomats failed. Do-hyun studied the trade proposals. The Valorans wanted access to Kithran manufacturing technology. The Kithrans wanted access to Valoran mining rights on border worlds. Both sides had been unwilling to compromise, seeing any concession as weakness. Commander Hajin visited to give military briefings. The Kithrans are not to be underestimated. Their military is smaller than ours but more advanced in some areas. If negotiations fail and conflict starts, it would be costly for both sides. Avoid war if possible. That's the plan. Good, because the military is not ready for another major war right now. We're still recovering from putting down the coup and securing the border worlds. The day of the summit arrived. Do-hyun boarded a diplomatic ship along with a small team of aides and translators. Princess Yoonji came too, officially as an observer but really to support him if things went wrong. The summit was held on a neutral station between Valoran and Kithran space. The station was huge, hosting diplomats from dozens of civilizations. Do-hyun felt completely out of place among the experienced negotiators in their formal robes and elaborate protocols. The Kithran delegation arrived in the conference room. They were tall and thin, with hard shells and multiple limbs. Their eyes were compound, reflecting light in strange ways. They moved with precise, almost mechanical efficiency. The lead negotiator was named Crix. He examined Do-hyun with those strange eyes and spoke through a translator device. You are human, not Velaran. Why does the Empire send an outsider to negotiate? Because I'll be honest with you, Do-hyun said. I don't know all the diplomatic games. I don't care about who looks stronger or weaker. I care about reaching an agreement that benefits both our peoples. Crix's mandibles clicked together. The translator said, This is acceptable. Proceed. The negotiations lasted 3 days. The traditional Valoran diplomats had spent hours on ceremony and formality. Do-hyun skipped all that. He laid out exactly what the Empire wanted and asked what the Kithrans wanted in return. Crix seemed almost surprised by the directness. He responded in kind, stating his position clearly. The real problem became clear quickly. Both sides were afraid the other would exploit any advantage gained from the trade agreement. We need trust, Do-hyun said on the second day. Neither side will agree to anything if we're expecting betrayal. Trust must be earned, Crix responded. How do we earn it? Small steps. We start with a limited exchange. 1 mining world for 1 technology license. If that works well, we expand. If either side betrays the agreement, we stop. But we give each other a chance to prove good faith. Crix consulted with his team. The clicking of mandibles filled the room. Then he turned back. This is logical. We accept this approach. The Valoran aides looked shocked. 3 previous summits had failed to reach any agreement. Do-hyun had just gotten the Kithrans to agree to a deal in 2 days. They spent the 3rd day working out details. Which mining world? Which technology? Timelines and oversight procedures. It was tedious work, but both sides were cooperating now. The atmosphere had changed from hostile to professional. When they finally signed the agreement, Crix did something unexpected. He extended the year was almost over. Do-hyun stood at the window of his quarters, watching ships come and go from the palace landing pads. In 2 days, his agreement with Queen Moran would be complete. She had promised him a ship, money, and freedom. The choice was his now. He had spent the last 4 months visiting border worlds, talking to miners, meeting with colonial administrators, listening to farmers and traders who felt forgotten by the Empire. He had written detailed reports on everything he saw, and Moran had started implementing changes based on his recommendations. Better supplies for colonies, more local autonomy, fair trade agreements instead of extraction policies. The changes were small, but they mattered to the people affected. Do-hyun had received dozens of messages from colonists thanking him. Some even called him a hero, though he didn't feel like one. He was just trying to help. Someone knocked on his door. Princess Yoonji entered carrying a data tablet. She looked sad. "Mother wants to see you," she said. "Final meeting before your decision." They walked through the palace together. Yoonji had become a real friend over the past year. She told him about court politics. He told her about life in the colonies. They had different backgrounds, but they understood each other. "Are you going to leave?" Yoonji asked quietly. "I don't know yet. I hope you stay. Things are better with you here. More honest, more real. Things would keep getting better even if I leave. Your mother is committed to reform now. But it would be slower, harder. You make people think differently. That's rare and valuable." Yoonji stopped walking. "And I would miss you. You're one of the only people in this palace I can actually talk to." Do-hyun smiled. "I'd miss you too." They reached Miran's private chambers. Yoonji squeezed his hand once, then left him to enter alone. Miran stood by her usual spot near the fireplace. She had changed over the past year. She smiled more, laughed occasionally. The hard edges had softened slightly, though she was still the queen when duty called. "Sit," she said. "We have things to discuss." Do-hyun sat. A ship model sat on the table between them. It was a beautiful vessel, new and fast, with enough cargo space for trading and enough speed for running if needed. The kind of ship he had dreamed of owning. "Your ship," Miran said. "Built to your specifications from the reports you gave my engineers. Fast, reliable, comfortable for one person. It's fueled and ready in the main hangar." She placed a credit chip next to the ship model. "Enough money to start over anywhere. Buy property. Start a business. Live comfortably for the rest of your life without working if you choose." Finally, she placed a document with official seals. "Safe passage through Velaran space. No questions asked. Protection from any enemies you made while working for me. A clean slate." Do-hyun looked at the 3 items. Everything he had been promised. Everything he had been waiting for. His freedom sitting right there on a table. "And if I stay?" he asked. "If you stay, the job gets harder. The reforms we've started will face more resistance. Not everyone is happy with change. You'll make more enemies, face more danger, work longer hours with bigger problems." Miran paused. "But you'll also be part of building something that lasts. Changing an empire, making life better for millions of people." "No pressure." Miran smiled. "None at all." She sat across from him. "I want to tell you something I've never told anyone. When I became queen 40 years ago, I was terrified. Everyone expected me to fail. I was young, untested, and faced enemies on all sides. So I became hard, cold. I built walls around myself and ruled through fear and control." She looked at the fire. It worked. I survived. The empire grew, but I was alone. Completely alone. Every relationship was transactional. Every conversation was political. I forgot what it was like to simply trust someone. Then I met you," she continued. "A human cargo pilot who did something stupid and brave and changed everything. You made me remember what trust feels like, what partnership means. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope that things could be different." Do-hyun felt emotion catch in his throat. "You gave me something too, purpose, a reason to stop running. A place to belong. So you'll stay?" "I don't know." Do-hyun stood and walked to the window. "Part of me wants to keep helping, keep building. But another part is scared. What if I fail? What if I make things worse? What if I'm not good enough for this?" "You think I don't feel that way every day?" Miran joined him at the window. "Every decision I make could lead to disaster. Every policy could fail. Every trust I give could be betrayed. Fear of failure is part of leadership. You don't conquer it. You work despite it. How do you do it? Keep going even when you're scared?" "I remember why I'm doing this. Not for power or glory. For the people who depend on me. The soldiers who trust my commands. The citizens who need protection. The future generations who will inherit what we build today." She looked at him. "You've seen the colonies. Talk to real people. You know what's at stake. Can you walk away from that?" Do-hyun thought about the families he had met. The miners who worked in dangerous conditions. The children growing up on worlds that barely had schools. The elderly colonists who remembered better times and hoped for change. Could he walk away from them? "No," he said quietly. "I can't. Then you have your answer. But I need something from you first. A real partnership. Not employer and employee. Not queen and advisor. Equals working together. Miran raised an eyebrow. You want to be equal to the queen? In this room, yes. When it's just us, we're Miran and Dohyun. Two people trying to fix an empire. No ranks, no hierarchy. Just honesty and trust. And outside this room? You're the queen, I'm your advisor. I'll show proper respect in public. But here we're partners. Deal? Miran extended her hand. Deal. They shook on it and Dohyun felt something settle inside him. This was his choice. Not forced, not trapped. He was choosing to stay, choosing this life, choosing partnership over isolation. So what happens now? He asked, and now we get to work. The Kithran agreement is expanding. We need to negotiate with other civilizations too. The border worlds need more reforms. The military needs modernization. There's a conservative faction in the council that still opposes everything we're doing. We have about 10 years of work ahead of us. Only 10 years? Optimistically, Miran smiled. Ready for it? As ready as I'll ever be. The next day there was a ceremony in the throne room. Queen Miran announced that Dohyun had chosen to remain as her special advisor permanently. She created a new title for him, Voice of the Outer Reaches. His official role was to represent the perspective of non-Velerans and colonial citizens in imperial policy. The nobles accepted it because they had no choice. Some were genuinely supportive now. Others remained hostile but quiet. The balance of power had shifted over the past year and everyone knew it. After the ceremony, Commander Hajin approached Dohyun. I misjudged you when we first met. I saw a weak civilian. I was wrong. You're one of the bravest people I've known. I'm just trying to help. That's what makes you brave. You could leave, live safe and comfortable somewhere else, but you choose to stay and fight for people you've never met. That's the definition of courage. Princess Yunji threw a small celebration that evening. Just a few trusted people, good food, actual relaxation for once. Dohyun sat with people who had become friends over the past year. Soldiers, diplomats, palace staff. People who saw him as one of them now, not an outsider. Speech! Someone called out. No speeches, Dohyun said. I'm terrible at speeches. Come on, Yunji encouraged. Say something. Dohyun stood reluctantly. Everyone was watching. Okay, fine. A year ago I crashed into your lives by accident. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to leave as soon as possible. But you all taught me something important. That belonging isn't about where you're from. It's about who you choose to stand with. What you choose to build together. I'm staying because I found something here I didn't know I was missing. Family. There was genuine applause. Not the formal political applause of court ceremonies. Real appreciation from people who cared. Late that night, Dohyun went to the hangar to see his ship one last time. The beautiful vessel Miran had promised him. It sat there, ready for flight, representing the freedom he was turning down. Having second thoughts, Miran's voice came from behind him. Just saying goodbye to a dream. The dream of simple freedom. No responsibilities, no commitments. That dream is still here if you change your mind. I meant what I said. You're free to leave any time. I know. That's what makes staying mean something. Dohyun turned to face her. If I was trapped, it wouldn't matter. But I'm choosing this. That makes it real. What should we do with the ship? Give it to someone who needs it. A colonist trying to start a business. Someone who actually needs freedom right now. Miran nodded. I'll find someone worthy. She stood beside him looking at the ship. You know what the interesting thing is? By giving up this freedom, you gained a different kind. Freedom to matter. To affect change. To be part of something bigger than yourself. Is that what you tell yourself? To make ruling an empire feel like freedom? Sometimes. Other times I just accept that freedom and responsibility are two sides of the same thing.